taking time to do this interview for SangamTalks and hopefully Sangam Media.
You would have seen in the recent clashes, a old Israeli, 95 years old, is donning a helmet and he's worn his bulletproof jacket and he's ready to fight. There are many generals who have come out.
Even here, there were videos of this retired general who came out and he said, all I had was a pistol. And immediately after the attack on October 7th, he was out on the border.
You see, there are almost out of the 9 million odd population of Israel, 2 million are Arab Israelis.
Yeah.
So they are the ones, if you have to make a country implode, it has to be from within, and you can carry out a similarity with what is happening in India. If you want it to implode, the enemy is within. It could have a political phase, it could have an economic phase, it could have a religious phase, it could have a caste kind of a fault line within the country are what are being targeted.
Thank you, sir, for being here and taking time to do this interview for SangamTalks and hopefully Sangam Media, which is a TV channel that we want to launch. So I want to have this conversation today in broadly 4 parts, and there is no clear segregation between them, but I want to understand the IDF and Israel as a country, the government. I'll come to the context of why, then maybe Hamas and look at their charter. Then, general, the war that's going on and what's happening in the wider ecosystem. And we'll close by, talking about the Israel-India relationship and lessons for India and so on and so forth. If I could start by asking you about the IDF. Are there similarities between IDF and the Indian Army in terms of professionalism? Your views on IDF?
Okay, firstly, before I go to the Israeli Defense Forces, I would also say that Israel is a hard state. It came into being in 1948 officially, but the fact remains that this is the promised land which has been there going back about 3,500 centuries. So this was the land where Moses led his followers from the slavery of Egypt and gotten settled down here, and that is why it finds a reference in the Bible, it finds a reference in the various scriptures. But the modern state of Israel came into being only in 1948, and the last 75 years they've been just fighting for their existence. And because of the being surrounded by the Arab nations who are all baying for their blood, they have converted themselves into a very strong hard power. Of course, they have the backing of the United States, they have the backing of most of the European Union, and they have a backing in various other parts of the country, of the world. But the fact remains that besides being backed by the Western powers, they have stood on their own because it is a matter of survival. They don't have a choice. And that is why the IDF, which is about 6.5 lakhs strong, uh, serving, or the people who are enrolled at any given time is about 1.7, 1.8 lakhs, and the rest are reservists and a little bit of the paramilitary. But the best part of the IDF is that everyone is a soldier because they are fighting for their mere survival and nothing else. So they may be 6.7 lakhs strong, but every human being is a soldier. You would have seen in the recent clashes, a old Israeli, 95 years old, is donning a helmet and he's worn his bulletproof jacket and he's ready to fight. There are many generals who have come out, including, if you seen that popular series Fauda, you would see that Lior, who was the main hero of the, has gone into battle, active battle. He himself was part of the intelligence.
Even here, there were videos of this retired general who came out and he said, all I had was a pistol. Yeah. And immediately after the attack on October 7th, he was out on the border.
Besides being a very hard power, it has a very strong, professionally competent and a motivated IDF. There have been problems. This has been a big failure. There is a kind of a failure of imagination, I would say, besides intelligence and various other things. We'll talk about it as we go on. But the fact is that till this time of the, say, we call it the Israeli 9/11, there was an aura of invincibility for the IDF. And they would say that Mossad, even if you think something, Mossad will find out. So that was the kind of aura, or the kind of past experiences which the world had of IDF. That has not only received a big dent, but shattered, I would say. So that getting back into that aura of invincibility will take a long time for the IDF.
They underestimated. I was seeing one interview where they said we were seeing them train and all of that, but we never imagined they would do anything audacious. We thought they would.
Yeah, there is a saying where they said that we saw them train and we thought they are training for a war they will never even contemplate launching, not realizing that this kind of a thing will happen. But if you actually see the chatter, if you actually see the kind of picture being built, the main focus of this operation, which they called very mischievously or deviously the Tufani Alaska kind of a thing. So it was known as Tufani Alaska, that they are going to take the revenge of the Alaska Mosque. And now Al-Aqsa Mosque, is in Jerusalem, East Jerusalem. So all they got some weapons caught from Jordan, which were headed towards West Bank, towards East Jerusalem. All the chatter which was happening was being shown as something big is going to happen in Jerusalem or in the West Bank. So the attention of the IDF, with certain tacit support of the Hezbollah, had moved northwards. Second issue, which was a major setback for the Israelis, was that Netanyahu not only indirectly supported the Hamas, because for him the bigger enemy was the PLO, erstwhile PLO, or the Fatah, and then now the Palestinian Authority. So he wanted to bring down the authority of the Palestinian Authority or the West Bank, or the Yasser Arafat and now the Mahmoud Abbas. And indirectly, he was supporting Hamas, which had gained power in the Gaza Strip in 2006. So, over a period of time, they projected as if the things are going to take place in West Bank, because that is where the settlers had happened. That is where about 6 to 7 lakhs of Israeli settlers had forcibly gone and occupied the West Bank thing. Then the Hezbollah was showing certain kind of activity in Lebanon, in Syria, Golan Heights, that side. So, and Netanyahu had built almost $1 billion kind of a fence and a wall in southern part, which was along the, I would say, 37 kilometers, some say 41 kilometers of the borders, which was with Gaza Strip. So this kind of a smart fence had certain amount of technology, which was there in the above the fence, on the fence, and underground sensors. Now they thought that this fence is invincible. However, it got breached at 6 major places. Attempts were made, I am told, 18 to 20
Just,
places.
I believe, earth movers.
Earth movers, but for that they had to shatter certain things. The surveillance cameras had to be shattered, the picture had to be painted, a kind of a radio silence had to happen, and a terrorist organization like Hamas can't do it alone. So there had to be an external state support.
There is clear state support.
There is a clear state support.
It's probably Iran or
it is Iran. It is Iran, and of course, certain amount of people from Jordan, from Lebanon, from Syria, all that they would have supported. But the fact is that the money, the training, and certain amount of equipment has come from Iran. Okay, so IDF myth has been shattered. It will take a long time for them to come out. However, the resolve, what has the good thing which has happened for Israel is, amongst all that bad things which have happened, this is the worst kind of a nightmare for them since the Six-Day War, 1967. The casualties are the worst, 1,400 dead, out of which about 300 are soldiers. So it is not that the soldiers were nowhere there. They were there, but they were not prepared for this kind of a thing which will happen from the air, from the rocket attacks, which swamped the Iron Dome. You see, Iron Dome is a very, very good kind of anti-aircraft or anti-missile system. But the fact is, it has its limitations by way of numbers. I think in a minute it can handle 300 rockets, and the entire thing got swamped by 4,500 rockets, or 7,000 in total. So you see that. So it happened from the air, It happened from the sea, it happened on the fence, it happened in the kind of a int picture which was built out, and of course it was that 1 week of holiday season, religious holidays which were happening. So it was timed in that manner. So these were all these things which led to this kind of a loss which Israel faced.
IDF is being accused of lying, that there was no killing of children. There were no. Everybody is focused on whether children were beheaded or no. That's the whole debate. I actually have a video here, and I'd like to play that, of a very big YouTube influencer called Muhammad Hijab. He was also part of the anti-Hindu riots in England, when there was this maligned campaign that RSS has come to England and all of that. He was actually one of the leaders over there. Let's hear him out.
Yes or no? I'm going to answer your question honestly and truthfully. Sure. And because I've tweeted about this, right? Okay. I think that what happened on October the 7th was one of the worst atrocities I have ever had to read about or watch on. It happens every day in Palestine. No. Why do you care about that? It actually doesn't. It doesn't. It does actually. No. The Israeli forces. I've got the stats for that. Israeli forces do not go. Wait a minute, Mohammed. Go and check out Mohammed. Israeli forces. Cast-led protective edge. Israeli forces don't go into Gaza on one day and grab grandmothers and kill babies in their beds. Okay. And hold on. Rape and abuse women. Rape, is there any evidence of that? It's been multiple reports in multiple mainstream media publications. But you can sit here and deny everything. No, I'm not denying anything. You are. No, I accept that some civilians have been killed. I do accept this. And I already said you don't believe any of the reports that women were raped? No, I didn't say that. I said that it's still to be. Do you think they were raped? No, I don't know. It's like the Russell Brand thing. You said we don't know any evidence. So why do you apply two standards? Okay, so when it's Israel, we know they're raped. When it's Russell Brand, you don't know because you're friendly.
He's saying that all accusation of rape of women, taking hostage of children, grandmothers, beheading children is all lies. And he actually goes on in this video to say that there was only one video of a charred baby, and that was AI. So you see, this is a I want to draw a parallel here. Just after the Pulwama attack, this is probably not just after, but maybe a couple of months after the Pulwama attack. There were elections round the corner or something like that, if I remember. There was a whole narrative spread across the country that the Indian government has asked the Indian army to do this, and the Indian army has done this to its own CRPF paramilitary soldiers. And this is a very popular narrative among Muslims across India. This was a lift conversation I heard among two Muslims who I was going down. And it took me a little while, by the time I reached it, we were exiting. That's when I tried to challenge these guys, but they were, of course. So I want to come to that whole aspect of the Indian army and this narrative later. But just in context of IDF, do you think they would be absolutely lying and spreading misinformation?
You see, one must realize that Israel is a state, nation state, and Hamas is a terrorist organization. And when I talk of a terrorist organization, it's an Islamist terrorist organization. And Israel is surrounded by 18 to 19 such Islamist terrorist organizations. They have different names, but the fact is there is the Islamic Jihad Council, there is Hezbollah, there is Hamas, there is Fatah, there is PLO, there is Palestine Authority, there are Iranian IRCG, and you name it and they have it. Now, besides that, there is ISIS. If you go a little beyond, there is Taliban. If you go into the African continent, there is Boko Haram. You see, so it is not, and if you look at the terrorist organizations the world over, you will find that 98 to 99% of terrorist organizations have an Islamic flavor to it. So this is something which happens. Now, because of the age of the social media, because of the information warfare which is taking place, it's a battle of narrative. Pakistan, I was 3 years in Islamabad. Whenever something like this happened, it was always a false flag operation that the Indian army has done it. And they've done it so that they can win the elections. The federal government has done it so that they can gain sympathy vote or something like that. So this narrative is funded by money coming from the world over, especially from the Middle East. This narrative has a sister agenda where they don't want Hindu Rashtra which they are saying, or Hindutva, to flourish within a secular kind of a larger edifice of our nation. So the fact is that this kind of a narrative will be there, but the world at large knows, and I am sure these speakers who are giving this kind of a narrative also know at large that what the kind of atrocities Hamas has done on the old, on the ladies, women, on the children, on the elderly, and created. And that is the main difference between Israel and Hamas. Israel uses the IDF to protect its civilians. Hamas uses its civilians to protect its terrorists.
Let's talk about that. This is clear, right? I mean, they keep refuting this.
No, they keep refuting it, but the fact is that the rockets are in the schools, rockets are just next to the hospitals.
I even heard that the headquarters of Hamas was at the basement of a hospital for several years.
It will be. It will be. Now, today, unfortunately, their main hospital has been bombed. Now Israel is refuting it that it is one of, because 40% of the rockets, because they are indigenous made, the water pipelines which were supplied to Gaza Strip from the world over were being used to make rockets. So if they were there, they were very crude kind of rockets which were made, and 40% failure rate, they would fall within Gaza. If you look at Gaza, it is so densely populated in a strip which is 41 to 42 kilometers long of north-south and 8 to 10 at its widest from the Mediterranean Sea to east-west. The population is almost 2.4 million. And if that is the kind of a density of the population and you are firing, it is all urban kind of a built up area which is there. There's hardly any trees, there are hardly any open spaces, and there's hardly any agriculture around. So they were essentially living out of dole which is happening. The problem is that 19,000, what was about 20 years back, 2 to 3,000 of Gaza people coming to work in Israel had become in 21 years of Netanyahu 19,000. Now these were the ones who were the informers. Many of them actually didn't go back. So there is this old story which someone was quoting on TV also. He said that there was a factory where a person used to get some mud in a wheelbarrow every day and take it out of the factory. And the security guard would always check the mud for anything which was being taken out, but he wouldn't find anything and he would allow that person to go. And after 2-3 months, he asked him, "What are you taking out of the factory? Because I don't find any construction happening." He says, "I'm taking out the wheelbarrow." So he was actually taking out the wheelbarrow. So Israelis were looking at what they are carrying inside. Is there a knife? Or is there a screwdriver? Is there a screw which he can come and use it here? While it was the man who was the main person, he is the one who was infiltrating. He was the one who was informing, he was giving intelligence back home. Where is what is the routine of the IDF, where there are loopholes, how to go across, all that kind of information. And many of them. Also, you see, there are almost out of the 9 million odd population of Israel, 2 million are Arab Israelis. So they are the ones, if you have to make a country implode, it has to be from within, and you can carry out a similarity with what is happening in India. If you want it to implode, the enemy is within. It could have a political phase, it could have an economic phase, it could have a religious phase, it could have a caste kind of a fault line. But the fact is that enemy or that fault lines within the country are what are being targeted. So I don't agree with any of the narrative which the Arab world is saying.
There is a person called Hashem, Basham or something. He's one of the ambassadors or whatever, representative in the West Bank of the Palestinian government or whatever that is. And extremely cynical, dark humor. He's using, again, very good interview with Piers Morgan, and the same narrative that we are, Ben Shapiro, a big social media influencer, Jewish, he actually in one interview earlier had called the Hamas sons of bitches. So he's taken a stand saying that how many sons of bitches do you want to kill now because 18 or 1300 Israelis were killed? Please give me the exchange rate, one citizen to how many, 20, 30, how many people do you want to kill? But they keep peddling the same narrative. And they keep peddling a narrative that Israel is the hate state. And this brings me to the point which you were also touching upon, 97-98% organizations have an Islamic flavor. I find that there's a complete whitewash of the root cause of the problem. It's always it's being projected as a problem of land, of an occupier who's come and occupied. So the problem is that when do you start the occupation? Do you start the occupation in 48 with Zionism? Do you start the occupation with Arabs taking over what was Jewish land? How far back in history do you go before saying who did this land belong to? So what is your view on it? Does Israel have a proper claim on this land?
You see, with all that infighting and fighting which has taken place here over the last 75 years, I think it was a mistake which the West did by giving this or promising this kind of a land to both the Arabs and the Jews. And then the Brits, Balfour Agreement, when they found it untenable because they wanted to use the Jews for their First World War industrial kind of a revolution and the money which the Jews could give it to them. And they wanted to use the Arabs to throw out the Turks, the Ottoman Empire. So if that was the backdrop, they used both the Jews and the Arabs and they promised both of them that this is the land, this is yours, we'll give it to you after that. Now 43, the French got out of Lebanon, gave independence to Lebanon, and I think around the same time 45, 46, the Brits also wanted to get out of that place, and after the World War ended and the United Nations came into being, they gave this problem to the UN, and the UN actually in consonance with the two-nation theory said that okay, 55% of this land goes to Israel and about 45% of this land goes to the Palestinians. And why this disparity of 10%? Because they had more of the fertile land given to the Palestinians and more of the desert part to the Israelis. So that was a kind of a equitable kind of a division of this land.
This is 67?
No, this was 1948, 48, the UN, the first thing. Now, Israel was in agreement and the birth of Israel took place. He said, fine, I'll take my 55% and we'll live happily. But the fact is, since that time till now, there have been 5 kind of agreements. There has been an Oslo agreement. There was lately an agreement which was backed by the US, which was going to be signed between Saudi Arabia and Israel, which has got scuttled to some, almost scuttled now that this thing has happened. But the fact remains that they came close to settling it down, whether it was between Yitzhak Rabin and Arafat, whether it was backed by the by the Egyptians, where of course their president got murdered or assassinated, and similarly Yitzhak Rabin, in spite of getting the peace prize, both Yasser Arafat and they got the peace prize as part of that Oslo agreement accord of 1993. The fact is that this didn't happen, and it didn't happen because the Arabs didn't let it happen. It is the Palestinians
who
didn't let it happen. So you can't wish it away. It is there in black and white. But the fact is that
keep claiming otherwise.
They keep claiming otherwise. But over a period of time, now Israel, as more and more Israelis or Jews started coming into their promised land, they needed more space. And that is why what was originally the West Bank is not even 1/3 of what was promised to the Palestine. So there are illegal settlements, I would say. There is a little kind of a move toward the east by the...
Were they instigated by Israel, or was it provocation which led to, just like, say, for example, Russia occupying Crimea? I don't know if I can draw that parallel, but was it because of instigation, or was it out of...
You see, when two
expansionist
players,
Israel, or...
No, Israel was not expansionist.
Never.
Israel was protecting its land. Israel was always wanting to have two nations. and secure, recognized borders. And that is why you will find that those 2 million of Arab Israelis who are staying within Israel, they don't have, there are certain restrictions for them, but the fact is they are very happy. There has been no kind of a popular uprising from within Israel because they have seen what is happening with their other cousins which are in West Bank or in Gaza. So the fact is that if you agree, if you draw a parallel, then Israel is right in what its stance is. The fact is that no Arab country wants a democratic Palestine. Jordan wants a Palestine which is under their control. That is the West Bank part of it. Egypt wants, it talked of a united Arab Republic. It looked at a little bit of democracy. But then the Muslim Brotherhood happened and all that thing got scuttled. But it wants to influence Gaza Strip because as a buffer, because they know what happened when Sinai got lost and the Israelis had gone right up to.
Basically, fodder. Palestinians are fodder for the Arab world.
They don't want democracy. There are kings, there are princes, there are autocracy, there is theocracy, but there is no democracy in the Arab world. So it would be very naive to presume that they would want a democratic Israel to survive alongside a democratic Palestine. And that is what the Palestine Authority is actually. It had, if you take out the militant wing of that, then it is much more, I would say, accepted by the Palestine. It is the true, actually, representative of the Palestinian people. Unfortunate that the Hamas overtook the Palestine Authority in 1987. In 1987, the Hamas was born, and 2006 elections, they won in Gaza and they threw out the PLO.
And the Palestinians elected them. And then 1 year later, they
but
killed
they are not the
every
representatives of the
opposition.
Palestinians. So
They are
now,
not?
the representatives of the Palestinians, they are a terrorist organization. I would not call them a militant organization. They are a terrorist organization because they thrive.
Why do people allow them to operate from a hospital and a mosque?
Because they are having a gun with them.
Is that the only reason?
One
do you
is
think
that.
They have
The
implicit
second
support
is
from the
that they come from the same stock. The blood is the same, the stock is the same, and you see, besides getting money and weapons, you see, anyone would get influenced if he sees a kind of a Robin Hood image, which some of them try and show.
Robin Hood, or is it also Islam? I am reminded of this interview of Barkha
ताकि वो हमारे मज़हब के लिए लड़ रहे थे, इस्लाम
मज़हब के लिए,
हाँ इस्लाम के लिए,
इस्लाम के लिए लड़ रहे थे कि कश्मीर के लिए लड़ रहे थे?
इस्लाम के लिए, कश्मीर के लिए भी, इस्लाम के लिए, उसके दिल में है ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह मुहम्मद रसूलुल्लाह.
This whole narrative about that this is an occupied problem, I find that is a utter lie. It is actually an Islam issue.
So let's talk of political Islam.
Yeah.
Now that you're wanting to allude towards Islam more than.
And I want to play this video for the audience.
لأنه نعمل حرب إنه نفرجي اليهود إنه إحنا مش إنه إحنا مش شاطرين، إحنا قوايا كمان.
We are stronger than the Jews. We are here to prove that we are stronger than the Jews.
بدهم يحاربوا وبضحوا بدمهم عشان فلسطين.
Little girls ready to die for Palestine. We must defeat the Jews in war.
بيعلمونا إنه الأقصى إلنا وإلنا يعني
الأقصى.
يعني إلنا فلسطين والأراضي كلها إلنا لأنهم بسبب كذبهم وانتهاكاتهم إنهم يقولون
Their temple is under the Alaska mosques. They are lying.
ولا مرة إنه يكون الهيكل تحت المسجد الأقصى. أنا أقرأ اللي هو
I hate the Jews.
بيعلمونا إنه
You see, that kind of indoctrination
What do you do?
happens.
What do you do?
This
I mean,
happens.
so you see, if this happens in Gaza and in West Bank, obviously these kids will become terrorists.
It happens in Pakistan too. I have seen it with my own eyes. I went to my bank, Standard Chartered Bank, where my pay used to come, and we got talking to the girl who was handling my case. Very smart, educated, I think convent educated. And we got talking, and she says, "Sir, why the Indian army is persecuting the Muslims?" I said, "No, we are not. You are being wrongly informed." She says, no, but you are always anti-Pakistan and this, that. We are also very strong because we have the nuclear weapon. She became very radical and very animated while we were just talking about banking. So the fact is that this is the narrative which the children have been peddled. This is the one they are growing up with. And if you saw the era of the stone pelters in the late 90s or the early 2000s, there were small babies who were espousing anti-India hate. You see, because they were being taught that was being spoken, that was being taught to them.
And when there was a little bit of pushback from the paramilitary, and if any child would die, get injured, then they say Adi highlighted.
You
right?
see,
so why do they get the kids in the first place? Is actually to use them as fodder.
Again, what I said, the Israelis would use the IDF to defend their civilians, while the Hamas or these Islamic terrorist organizations would use the civilians to protect the terrorists. You see, now again, if you draw the same analogy, Israel would use the rockets or the Iron Dome to protect its civilians, and Hamas would use the civilians to protect its rockets. And that is why you alluded that they'll be in schools, they'll be in hospitals, they'll be their command centers would be in bunkers or in tunnels which are below the hospitals, or these kind of shopping malls. And that is why you would find that there is a narrative. While the IDF said before we start the ground offensive, we would want 1 million Palestinians who are civilians to vacate this area and get towards southern Gaza from North Gaza. And that is why they were wanting, no, don't go, because they are their protection, they are the fodder which the terrorists will use.
Blockades on roads.
The best of the leadership, the top leadership of Hamas with their families are residing abroad. And those who are the middle rung leadership also, 1 month before this 7 October happened, had vacated Gaza and moved to Qatar, to various other places. So, why it was done? It was done because the cannon fodder is that public who's been radicalized, cannon fodder is that civilian who's being used as a human shield, and who suffers the most? The children.
So while I agree that a lot of them, because the terrorists have a gun, so they are compliant, but aren't they also complicit?
They are
the
complicit.
Populations, aren't they complicit as well?
If you saw certain videos, when you saw the video of that Israeli woman who was being paraded, taken naked, and they were the civilians who were spitting on them, the civilians who were trying to
distributing sweets. Knife attack in a synagogue, they kill a rabbi, old rabbi, they had distribute sweets.
Distributing sweets, there is a kind of a joyous thing happening in the Iranian parliament. So if all this is happening, you have to understand the psyche of a Muslim. For him, the concept is of no nation. It doesn't believe in a nation state. It believes in a caliphate. Now, with caliphate, we will rule the world. Either you are Muslim, it's my way or the highway. If you are not a Muslim, you are a kafir. You have to be either converted or you have to be eliminated. There is no third option for you. Now, if that is the kind of thing which you grow up with, now this will spawn hundreds of more kind of terrorists, because indoctrinated, they'll see the videos, they'll get radicalized, and there will be lone wolf attacks. Yesterday you saw in Amman what was happening, where there was a kind of a procession which was against the Israeli embassy happening, and riot police had to be brought in.
All over Bangalore. Hundreds of Muslims lined up with
those placards on the MG road or whatever. But then there is a narrative which Yogi has said, if you are with the Hamas, please vacate UP. So that they understand. There is hardly any these kind of occurrence which will happen in UP. You have to have a strong federation. You have to, within the democracy, there is, if you are honest, if you are doing it for the larger good, if you are strong, things will not happen.
There's an old saying, Islam only understands force.
We must look at the grand design of what these radical Islam or I would say political Islam wants. First, they will use these terrorists to create this kind of a incident, large scale incident. So they will broadcast it. So when they broadcast it, it will show panic, it will show mayhem, it will show destruction. So they have created a narrative that we are all powerful. And if it is you are not with us, then we will destroy you. When that happens, it creates a kind of a refugee kind of a crisis. People want to get away from that zone. North Israel has been vacated. South Israel, which was all along that 2 kilometers belt of the Gaza Strip, had to be forcibly vacated. Otherwise, people would have been on the beaches. This is the best weather to be on the Mediterranean coast. There were musical festivals going on. There was so much of music and dance and general kind of a feel-good factor happening in Israel. So they create that kind of a narrative, and then they show that we are all powerful. That initiates a refugee crisis, and then also it brings a kind of a reaction. When the reaction is when Netanyahu says, I will eliminate 50,000 cadres of the Hamas, it is very easy to say it. It is very, very difficult to execute. How do you identify? They have all melted away
with the people.
Do you also know that we need to just get over the first 7-10 days? By then something will happen like the hospital which happened here, and the world opinion will slowly start changing, that children are dying, the wounded are dying,
pressure on
Israel to stop, ceasefire, and that is what they would want. So they know that we need to just lie dogo, get into our trenches, get into our foxholes, ease out the first 8-10 days, or leave Gaza through the tunnels, and then after that it will be hunky-dory, back to the normal. But what it has created,
they would have executed.
It has created a kind of a backlash which is very strong. Now, when this backlash happens, the world opinion changes. So the UN says, I will send in now to rebuild. I will send so many more dollars into Gaza. The Western democracies say, we are ready to take refugees from Gaza. We will give them Panavi shelter, we'll give them whatever. Egypt says, I already have 95 lakhs. I can't take any more, so it has to be
sealed their borders.
We will seal. It has to be shared. But all other Arab nations, no, we don't want.
Nobody wants them.
Germany will, with a kind of a flower, certain people with white flower, please come in. Norway will do it, Sweden will do it. And all these kind of democracies, Canada will do it, Trudeau.
Shockingly, there are people, I saw a video of this sixth journalist in Times Now.
Pradeep Datta, yeah.
He was interviewing a line in Tel Aviv, I believe, 20-30 Israelis, oldish, all standing with placards. We want an exchange of prisoners. And I was wondering, why are they carrying them? And soon somebody answered, we don't want revenge. We want only an exchange of prisoners. As if this is going to stop.
So that was a ploy. 199 prisoners, because there is a history to it. For one soldier, Gilad, they had exchanged thousands of Palestinians were left. They were left. So they thought 199 prisoners. So they can dictate whatever has happened. But now there's a resolve. They say they can be, if you stop shelling or air attacks, we'll start returning the prisoners. No, first return, then we will see. So there is no kind of a thing. But when getting back to what the narrative which terrorists do, now when there is this kind of a world opinion happening and people are ready to take in refugees, happened from Syria, happened from Morocco, happened from Algeria, happened from Somalia. So they all go and swamp Rohingyas, if you take it in the Indian context. You see, Kashmiri Pandits, from there they settle down. So Pandits are different, they are not. So these pockets of so-called minorities which have come into your country to play the victim card, start demanding special rights, slowly. Then they start proliferating. They change the democratic status of that area.
The entire demography
Be it Okhla, be it Shaheen Bagh, be it certain other pockets of Delhi. But the local politician will, for the vote politics of again, will give him an Aadhaar card, will give him something, freebies and all that. And then they start demanding the right. And as they get stronger, there are violent protests. And they want to change the narrative. Then they want to change the regime. So that is happening world over. The attempts are being made, and when they change the regime, it is part of that larger caliphate or Khorasan. So that from the Middle East to Indonesia, we will have one kind of a caliphate. So this is a narrative with every Islamist. Everyone who is a follower of political Islam would want to attempt. But they will use the militant part of that political Islam group, that is the terrorist organization, to initiate this kind of a thing. So this is the entire cycle, and it keeps repeating in different regions at different times with different intensity. And that is why you'll find that there will be Muslims, they may be Shia or Sunni. PLO is a Palestinians are Sunni, but a Shia Iran is siding, supporting with them. So that kind of a narrative happens because in the larger, when they look at the larger picture, it is Islam. Their division will come in later, and that is where it would be a maybe politically incorrect statement to say that if Jews are persecuted the world over and they have no other place to go, same is the thing with Hindus. They would have no other place to go if something like this happens.
So I wanted to use this hook to go to Hamas's charter. So it says Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it. Its definition of the movement, Article 1, the Islamic resistance movement, which is actually Hamas, our program is Islam. From it draws its ideas, ways of thinking and understanding of the universe, life and man. It resorts to it for judgment in all its conduct and is inspired by it for the guidance of its steps. It then goes on to claim that we are part of Muslim Brotherhood, which is a pan-Islamism right there, that we are absolutely clear that Jews are our enemy, and Quran actually openly says that Jews and the kafir and the what does it say? The Jews, and generally also for kafirs, that they are the worst of all creation.
You see, the issue is Hamas is the only I would say terrorist organization in the neighborhood vicinity of Israel, which does not propagate a two-nation theory. They want to annihilate Israel, the Jews. So in a way, they are against the Palestinian civilians or the people, Arab, who are there. The fact is, Hamas is not only bad for Israel, Hamas is bad for Palestinians, and Hamas is bad for the world.
Why don't Palestinians rise up against them? So I'll give you why I'm asking this. When Putin invaded Ukraine, you know, a lot of Western liberals, progressives as they call themselves, self-anoint themselves as progressives and whatever, they said, oh, there must be an uprising from within Russia against this warmonger and whatever, right? So the expectation that people must rise. They did exactly the same thing when Modi came to power. They said people must rise against Modi and all of that, as if the people are not with, you know, their leaders. So the point I'm making is, why is the same expectation not from the Palestinians?
You see, the Palestinians, I'll generalize, not only the Palestinians, the Muslims at large, the moderate Muslims, the ones who are educated Muslims, they would prefer to keep quiet rather than make a stance, because then they are worried about a fatwa against them or their family or their interests. So they would rather remain quiet. It is only lately that you, on a TV debate, you will find a vibrant kind of a Muslim lady trying to take on the Maulvis or the Mullahs or the one who.
They are actually
but very
not
few
Muslims, sir. They will actually, yes, very few,
Very
but
few.
they almost are on the edge of, they actually end up being more Hindu than more Muslim.
But the fact is, at least you see something.
Huh,
5
from
years
within
back
them.
in India, there was no way
Nobody.
that anyone would put. So the Palestinians, you see what Kashmiris do. They are largely fence sitters. They will side with the force or the power which they perceive to be more powerful on that given day.
Is that because of Islamic, also soft corner for Islam?
That will always be there. You see, that will always be there. That is the baseline. You see, religion before a nation, religion before anything else. So if religion, so Islam, that is a given. But a Kashmiri will also side with someone who is the power of the day. If post Article 370, it is the center which is more powerful, or it is the governor who is more powerful, or the security forces have an upper hand, There will be all that kind of thing. But also, you see, it is not only just that they will side. It is also that whatever support they were getting, whether it was ideological from Pakistan, whether it was from the Hurriyat, which was coming from the top leadership, and whether it was funding or the finances which were coming in, whether it was fake FICN, which was flowing in from Pakistan, and the fake 500 rupee note being given to a stone pelter to throw stone and then merge with the. So all that has stopped, and that is why the federal structure. That is why I say Israel is small. It has a 9 million population. We are 140, 150 crore, out of which we have 25 to 30% now Muslims, and there will be illegal immigrants and Rohingyas and so many other things. So it is a much more humongous issue for us than it is for Israel. But for that also we have to have a strong federal structure, and in that federal structure the center has to be very powerful. And that is my kind of a worry, that this Indie alliance or whatever they say, these coups who are now yesterday with the Palestinian Authority, we all are with Palestinian Authority in the sense Palestinians, if it is a civilian casualty, if it is a children. But it doesn't mean that we are siding the Hamas. Willy-nilly we were siding with the Hamas. That is what most of our Maulvis or these.
Basically, their position is that you side with the Palestinian citizens. How are they involved? They are not Hamas. Okay, what should Israel do? And Piers Morgan asks both Muhammad Hijab and the other Palestinian guy, what should we do? Basically, they have no answer. They basically want Israel to surrender. Take this and go back to peacemaking. Basically.
So Israel will not surrender.
Will not
you see, the second issue is that if you see, they say that it has to be proportionate kind of a response. Now, I was seeing a kind of an interview somewhere, and very rightly, the anchor, the one who was being interviewed, he asked the anchor, it was a BBC kind of a thing. He says, what do you mean by proportionate? If they attack 20 of my villages or kibbutz or cities or townships, and they rape 100 women, so you think the proportion is that I go into Gaza and rape 100 women?
Yeah, that is the Consul General of Israel Embassy in Bangalore. I heard that interview.
Yeah, so he said that is your aura. They have very woolly ideas of let a terrorist fire next to their ear, and then we will see what will she. It is very easy to be in a AC kind of a environment, sitting in a news studio and making these kind of statements. That proportionality. And what Israel has done, they said there will be collateral damage. Do not fire from hospitals, otherwise we will be forced to. The tunnels are underground. Now they have given them 3 days. They have yet not started their ground offensive. They are saying, please vacate, please vacate, please vacate. That window has stopped. But still they have not gone. Maybe they are waiting for Biden to come.
That is graciousness of Israel, right?
Secondly,
they released water also now.
But it is, yes.
But the narrative is still, oh, your children are dying, water you stopped, electricity, no internet.
What I was being told, that the UNICEF vehicles, the UN vehicles which are inside, they are being used to ferry these terrorists and their weapon systems from one place to another. This water which is meant for these hospitals is being utilized by the cadres, Hamas cadres. Now, how do you stop that? You can't stop that. If you saw, there was a photograph I saw, it said aid from Japan for the Palestinian people in Gaza. Now that it was a sandbag that was being used for revetment, for reinforcing a bunker. So this kind of thing. There was yesterday in the news, I saw someone holding a bag of Indian basmati rice. There was no rice inside, there were bullets which were being carried. So this kind of a narrative, so one has to see, you can't just get influenced by a Maulvi who says, yes, no civilian should suffer. But it is not a just war. Why did 1400 Israelis suffer? So it is something like that. And
you can't sit back. You have to respond. Absolutely. We'll come to the last part of what are the lessons for India. And firstly, before we go there, you firmly believe India must stand with Israel.
Definitely, no questions to this. We are with the Palestinian people, but we stand firmly with Israel. We should stand firmly with that they have a right to exist and exist peacefully. And you get into my house and destroy me, then please accept what kind of a retribution, and that retribution would be such that you will remember. So that is the stance, and of course the Palestinians are suffering. So any war, the civilians will suffer. There will be collateral damage.
And so, lessons for India.
Oh, lessons for India. You see, 2-3 things we need to understand. We are a rising power, but we are a soft power. We were softer earlier. Last 10 years, we've shown some spine, we've shown some resolve. Now, if you are a rising power which is looking at overtaking USA in 2075 with a 55 trillion economy, if you look at the projections, and you are a 3.75 trillion economy now. So, now within the next 30-40 years, if you are going to rise to be the second highest GDP in the world, then your organizations, your armed forces, your enforcement agencies, your police, your ED, your intelligence agencies have to also be able to protect, be able to reform, modernize, have that kind of technological thing that you are able to protect your interests when you are a 55 trillion economy. So everything has to rise, everything has to reform, everything has to modernize. That will only happen if you are strong inside, if there is a political will. If there is an Operation Ajay which is launched to take out 1,000+ Indians from Tel Aviv or Israel, something like that happened earlier, from various countries all over the world. So that resolve will only happen if firstly there is a political will, and then you have the ways and means to execute it. So if you have to project power that manner, if you have to tell the world that I will protect my interests like the US does now, you have to become stronger. And if you have to become stronger, then all these which constitute national power, comprehensive national power, CNP which they call it, all these institutions and organizations have to rise. It is not only economy. You got to keep your powder dry. You have to have the intelligence agencies. You have to have the various alliances and kind of a sharing. When Kargil happened, USA refused to share the GPS data with us. We were blind the first few days. So we have to have that kind of a power where he dare not do it again to us. 71 gunboat diplomacy, again there are 2 carrier battle groups which are in the Mediterranean. But they are against Jordan, Israel, Iran, not Israel, Syria, Lebanon and Egypt, that play ball, don't interfere. But the fact is, we are going to replace USA in times to come. So we got to play, we have to punch at that level. We have started punching at our weight, but we have to start punching above our weight. And for that, diplomacy will be only a minor tool that the NSA goes,
Both
the foreign
soft
minister
and
goes.
hard power.
Both soft and more hard. It has to be backed. Only then it will happen.
With hard power, probably soft power.
You see, soft power will in any case. So the Bollywood, you see the change in narrative.
But sir, I have one more connected point, right? And we've talked about this. The underlying, the bed of Islam, pan-Islamism, caliphate, khilafat, khalifat. How this population is rising. It's 20-25%, whatever it is, and we've not had a census now. We will have to be open about talking about the problem within Islam, the kafirhood within Islam, right? If we do not talk about it, then we have it's like General Rawat used to say, we have a 2.5 war. I don't know if he never explicitly said it.
That 0.5 was, he was meaning more of the left-wing extremism, Naxalites, LWE, rather than Islam per se. But the fact is that we can't wish away this 25-30 crores or 30% of 25 to 30% in certain pockets. We can't wish it away. We can't just also tell them that go into Pakistan. We want Pakistan itself. I would want, personally, if you ask me, that a powerful Pakistan is not good for our interests. It will create more problem for you. A broken Pakistan. But so is he wanting to break you. So the battle is on. and he has a proxy, larger big brother China, which is helping him out to do it. So if we are looking at one border, we are not looking at a Pakistan border separately and a Chinese border separately. And we have a large coastline, 7,500 odd kilometers of our coastline to protect. Our interest in the IOR to protect. China, as on date, is 132% of the US Navy. And they are progressing at a much rapid pace. You see, from conception, from conceiving a thing to operationalizing and inventorization of that thing takes only 7 years in China. It takes 17 years in USA, and it takes 30 years or more in India. We just now retired the MiGs of the 60s, MiG-21s. So the fact is, there is a lot of catching up to do, and there is that is why all these initiatives, Make in India and all that, Atmanirbhar Bharat and all that, are not mere phrases. We got to work seriously towards it. But the fact is, now coming back to what you are saying, there is a problem. We can't wish it away. The first part for us is to realize that there is a problem. Only then we'll start working towards it.
And the politicians to talk about it.
And they're talking.
They don't.
They're talking. But yes, there is a Yogi, there is a Sarma in Assam who are talking about it. There are others who are talking against this and having to divide the Hindus first, further by caste-based kind of a census and all that kind of a thing. But the fact remains that we need to educate the Muslims. How do you educate? We need to modernize the Muslims. How do we? By mainstreaming them, giving them more economic opportunities, giving them more, I would say, education, which is modern education, so that madrasas need to be stopped. The funding to the madrasa needs to be stopped. Making more doctors, making more, there is a problem. Because they say if you make more in IAS and IPS officers at some stage, or bureaucrats at some stage, they are the ones who are going to. But that is something where a balance will have to be created. But the larger masses, we got to educate the women, because they say beti bachao, beti padhao, and see the impact it is happening. We don't say bas 2 ya 3 bacche now, because that beti padhao will educate the neighborhood. She will say, no, I don't want a second child or a third child, or there has to be a gap. So educate the child. Similarly, I am sure that the Muslim women who are seeing what is happening have a mind of their own. Even if they are forced by their husbands to go and vote for a particular party, they will see what is larger good for them and vote what they see or what their conscience allows. So the Muslims are an issue. At some stage, they say that there is a point beyond which if they rise in the population, then we start catapulting towards a kind of a Muslim state.
Another civil war, another partition, ask for partition.
It is happening in Europe. You see, France may have banned a pro-Hamas kind of a thing, kind of a procession taking place in France, but France, Germany, Sweden, Belgium, they are no-go zones. Similarly in UK, there may be a Brampton where are Sikhs, but there will be a time when there will be similar kind of ghettos of Muslims in US and Canada. So you can't wish that away, because they are procreating or producing at a much faster pace. So we have to be cogent of that threat, and we have to work towards it. But mainstreaming of the Muslims is something which has to be done, and it has to be holistically looked at, while also looking at our neighbor and ensuring that it hastens the kind of a slide which is happening, or it breaks up. If Sindh assimilates with India, nothing wrong with that. If Balochistan becomes part of Sistan Balochistan, we'll welcome that. If the FATA or the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa goes towards the greater Afghanistan, we more than welcome, and then we should be able to sort out that little Punjab, Pakistani Punjab. So that would be what a landlocked Pakistan we should be looking at and working towards. That's what I would say. Strong words, but that's my views.
And my view, and I'll probably close with this, very controversial, or I don't know controversial or practical, but I just find that the solution to all this, to the Islam problem, will have to be at an India level about Ghar Wapsi. It will have to be about bringing Muslims back home. Otherwise, The edge, if you're sitting on the fence, the ability to switch over because of the Islamic structure, organization works in a manner like the Tablighi movement. It hard converted all soft Muslims who were Muslims in name only, but all Hindus by their living tradition in Mewat over to hardline Muslims. What we saw in Nu and other places right now with the Bajrang Dal, Ram Navami is terrible. So that's my view, and soon I'm hoping to talk about it large scale.
I would say it is a utopian kind of a thing. You see, I have spoken to many Muslims on this, not only in the Kashmir Valley, but also Punchi Musalmans, Rajouri, that area which is this side of the Pir Panjal, where they all converted. When some of them pre-partition, some of them post-partition, because of they found that the minorities get a little more extra dole or status in Kashmir, so it is better to be that. So when you sit down and talk to them, they say, "Sahab, we'll side with India. We are nationalistic, but don't ask us to convert or do a Ghar Wapsi." And they are not the virulent form of Islamic kind of a populace. They are the moderate or someone who has traditionally sided Gujjar population or something. So I don't think so that is possible. What we can do is stop this love jihad or these conversions and all these the missionaries which are. Now, why are the Christians maybe now siding with the Jews, but the Christians blame the Jews for crucifying their Jesus Christ? You see, so in their heart also, they feel that no, these Jews are getting too big for their boots. So this religion will always play a very prominent part in this geopolitics the world over. But the fact is, the clear and present danger is the spread of Islam and the radical form of Islam the world over. And the Christians have 199 countries to go to and settle down. The Hindus have no other place to go and settle down. So if we have to safeguard our interests, we have to draw a balance, and we have to ensure that the Muslims, which are Indian Muslims, modernize at a much faster pace and assimilate with the mainstream of the country.
Dropping off all this kafirhood and pan-Islamism will have to go down in their
has
minds.
To go down, and that can go down, because you see, a Muslim who's a clean-shaven Muslim, if that percentage increases in India, if a Biduri doesn't start calling Danish Ali a terrorist, then these kind of things may so there has to be a kind of there will be a RSS or there will be a Bajrang Dal, but besides that, the larger picture, which I think under the present government, I haven't seen our Prime Minister giving even one anti-Muslim kind of a statement. He's always sabka saath, sabka vikas.
But he is, of course, always accused of it.
He will be accused, you see, but I think he is the only one, he and people like Yogi and Hemanta Sharma, who are our last hope. If you do not bring them back into power by 24, 29 or the foreseeable future, I would say, there is going to be a problem for the nation.
If you all enjoyed the conversation with Major General Arvind Bhatia, and yes, please spread the video, help us get better reach from the conversations and his views on the topic. Thank you very much.